Got my one strap snapped on my Liberty bibs. What a Levi Garrett packed between my lip and my gum. America. Got mud kicking off of my Red Wing boots. Sweat stained tank top in my foot of the...
Good evening, everybody. This is the Nunn of Stu and the Nunn with my main homie, Travis Cox.
What's happening, guys?
We are broadcasting live today from another undisclosed location in the Central Texas area. We are at Studio Charlie.
Yeah.
Studio Charlie of the Stu and the Nunn. Super excited about tonight's show. Kind of bummed out. Stu is like off doing really cool things. He's at the Boy Scouts of America camp, leading young men and speaking there and doing some different things. So we're excited for him. As always, being involved in the community, something that we believe strongly here at Stu at the Nunn. So we'll be doing that. He'll be doing that while we do the show. We have a lot of really interesting topics, some deep, hard topics to talk about today. The Rand Corporation actually last night released this 200-page ditty on suicide. On post-traumatic stress. Oh man, I'm like all over the camera space here today. And so I went through that all day today and kind of read and like got educated on some things. Yeah, like probably upset my wife's printer a little bit doing that one, but. Lots that we want to talk about with that, as well as some other things. But Travis was on the show about a month ago, maybe?
Yeah, about a month ago.
We were at the Studio Alpha in Central Texas. And we hung out with Freckles the Bear and drank some Pinot Noir and talked about some pretty cool things. Recap of your military service, U.S. Marine Corps Recon.
Get it.
Sniper.
Yes, sir.
You know, like you got the cool little like bullet thing that hangs around your neck and stuff. Like, you know, you like flash that when you're at the bar. You're like, can I get a beer? And you like splash it on the thing. No, like
not at all.
But hey, big shout out to Dr. Michael Simpson of Hunting Hitler fame on the History Channel. Yeah. But most importantly, of Sheepdog Response. This is his new shirt available on the Sheepdog Response store. Go online, get it. Supports them, supports him. But it says, do no harm, but do no harm. And it's got the cross arrows for him being Special Forces. And then the doctor thing because he's a doctor. And those are legit Canadian guns I've been working on.
Nice.
You know, there's a very big... gun restriction law up in Canada. That's why, you got to wear T-shirts that are tight.
The schmedium arms.
The schmedium. Schmedium sleeves.
Yeah.
But excited to have everybody listening in and tuning in tonight. We'll be checking. We're doing it right now. We're making sure everything's broadcasting right, because we've been known to be Bush League. But, I'm pretty proud of myself setting this all up without the technical support of our badass producer. But let's jump into it. You and I both transitioned from the military. We talked about this a little bit last time you were on the show. And we kind of left off without getting into like where we stand now in the community. We kind of talked about some of our accomplishments. We talked about some of our goals, but we didn't talk about how we've developed ourselves to be the resilient warriors that we are now. This was not an easy process. This was something that trials, tribulations, shortfalls, pitfalls.
Absolutely.
You name it. We've enjoyed it, and when we've suffered it. Things that in our youth. Our naivety and our pride led us to do, or like our lack of understanding led us to do or believe. Like today, I mean, you got some ink you're getting worked on today, getting removed, because like when you were younger, you thought it meant something. Then you realize that your core belief, like that's not you.
Yeah, it was definitely a misunderstanding of some some Old Testament scripture and a misunderstanding, a misinterpretation that I had, and put a permanent mark on my body, and have evolved in my walk as a Christian, and understand that I made a mistake in my understanding of that, and so I'm going through the appropriate steps to remove that from my body. It's not who I am and what I believe in any longer. And so today I had another tattoo removal session, and should have a couple more, but it's healing in its own way.
Like I'm tattoo free. Like we had some rules in our house as a kid. Like one of them was like no tattoos.
Yeah.
We
had that rule too in my house as well.
I guess I never left my house emotionally because I was always afraid of what like my dad would do, or like mainly like he would ask me why I did that. The other thing, I had mentorship and guidance as a young private that said, hey, like don't do that because you might regret it later down in your career.
Right.
And so like I never I didn't do like the moto tats, if you will.
Right,
like
right,
I didn't do that stuff.
I'll tell you. So two funny stories about military tats. One was I was in a tattoo parlor one time about to get an Eagle Globe and Anchor tattooed on my forearm. And no offense to anyone who has that tattoo, but it's definitely not original. And luckily, the tattoo artist, I think, knew that I wasn't really ready, and he said he had another client coming in, so I waited an hour, and then ended up getting kicked out of this. And I was sober, by the way. I was in a clear state. But and the other thing is, when I got my first tattoo, my dad was so uncomfortable with it that I got it on my tricep. He required me to wear short sleeves at a minimum. If I wore a sleeveless shirt, it made him uncomfortable, and he'd ask me politely to go put a regular T-shirt on to cover it up. It made him uncomfortable there for a little while, but now he doesn't even notice them.
It's funny like how these things change, right? These viewpoint, these lenses. Like my lens of life is dramatically shifted. When I was in high school in Anchorage, Alaska, when I first entered the United States, I was a peace-loving, pot-smoking, straight-up hippie. Like,
Okay.
Like if I could have grown dreads, I probably would have.
Wow.
That was not appreciated in my house. I can tell you that. Like,
yeah.
Pops did not like. I remember, having an awkward conversation where I got busted out on some stuff and just realizing like I'm an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
To joining the military, looking at the military as a form of service and a beautiful part of becoming a citizen of this country and earning my citizenship. But like we've talked hundreds of times about how a chapter in a Robert Heinlein book, Starship Troopers, influenced me to do it. And then the other aspect of it, and the other phase of it, is that turning into a time of war, and then during that war, starting off with like let's kill them all,
right.
Mentality, and then now it's like being, and even while I was there, like from trying to kill them all to trying to train them all so that we could leave.
Yeah. Well, I think that transition really helps whenever you actually get over to the war zone and it's not a training situation, and you finally get over there and you're dealing with the actual indigenous people, and it becomes very real, and you realize that the primary mission is the man to the front, back, left, and right. And I think that a lot of the motives that are given in training shift usually for a lot of us once we get there. I think the big picture kind of comes around at that point, because it becomes very real and human.
And that's an interesting snapshot that I want to talk on that for just a few seconds, because there's some really cool stuff that I've seen recently, or re-seen recently, that kind of touch on that. We talk about this big divide between the military veteran community and the general public, and they don't see us, they don't understand us, and they have this strong Hollywood concept of what we are, what we do, that even ourselves, we have failed to promote the films that get it right.
Yeah. We did a good job, I think, the last time talking about Heartbreak Ridge. Not Heartbreak Ridge, Hacksaw Ridge.
Yeah. I just rewatched The Pacific recently.
Yeah.
And, one of the things I loved about The Pacific, so Band of Brothers was fantastic,
Mhm.
and I'm biased because of the 506 crew, but they talked about them up until the end and to the points where they would get to come back. But what they didn't do that the Pacific did do is bring them home.
Yeah.
So the Pacific really did a good job of. They dedicated an entire episode of the season to them returning and actually having to reintegrate and deal. And you know, there's seeing Lackey, the author of A Helmet for My Pillow, seeing him like transition back and like having that cocky, I just survived all this stuff, to going into a newsroom to try and get like a local sports bit at a local paper, and that's that's a dramatic change,
right?
And like having to sit there and like hammer at a typewriter, finger at a time, to like get a job, and then have to prove his worth. Where like anyone that had just witnessed him for the last 3 years would know like he's worth his weight in gold.
Yeah.
Like a true hero. To like, going next door to the young lady that he had a crush on all his life in his dress private uniform. And like, while she's like talking to a boy from West Point, and he like goes up there and like pulls the dude's man card.
Right.
Like politely,
yeah.
Like to the other guy coming home and refusing to wear his uniform ever again. Struggling into getting into school, struggling at a lot of things, and like not being able to hunt. He went on a dove hunt with his dad, and he just couldn't do it. And I just thought about how there were so many parallels. Like when I came back, I didn't have a problem wearing my uniform if I could fit into it.
I think we all fall into that category.
But I didn't want to hunt.
Yeah.
Like the things that I found great pleasure and honor in before, I just didn't. I wasn't compelled to do anymore.
Yeah.
And so it's really cool that they did that. And so one of the reasons I want to talk about the transition today is because of some of the things that we've been seeing. Great book by Sebastian Younger, Tribe, that's out there right now. We both, probably in the last 6 months, have read it.
Yeah, I finished it last week. Yeah, I'm fresh off of it. Great book.
You got guys, brilliant minds like Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Having Sebastian on his show to like talk about it. And actually, I've heard Joe Rogan say on several different other episodes of his podcast how he wants Sebastian back because he feels like.
Yeah, because it was a 1 hour show. It was exactly 1 hour, and he's on a tight schedule.
And he wants to get back into it because there's so many things about that experience. Sebastian Younger also wrote an amazing book that I think truly grasps a small unit dynamic called War.
Yeah, it's on my list.
There's books out there like On Killing and On Combat by Colonel Grossman. Okay. Like
one of them.
Yeah, one of them's okay. I think, for the most part, civilians don't really get that experience. Well, hence why Ernest Hemingway, going over to like figure out and learn about the war as a war correspondent, like realizes like the only way that he's truly going to understand warfare is if he participates in it, and then goes and participates in the Spanish Revolution or whatever. There's the war over there, and one of the most famous quotes is like, there's no hunting like the hunting of man.
For those who live to taste it, nothing else will satisfy.
Yeah, like we wouldn't have like that perspective if he didn't go participate in it. Mm. So not many civilians typically get it. Sebastian Younger gets it.
Well,
and I think that's because he lives it.
Yeah,
like he immerses himself into that experience.
I think the experience has brought him to some pretty low places, and he talks about it openly. He's accountable to himself, and that's how he's been able to overcome a lot of what these war experiences have brought him. And he holds the veteran community accountable. He calls a spade, and it's refreshing. He's earned his place, given he's not a military service member, but he's earned his place to have his opinion. He's paid his dues in a pretty tough game, if you will. And and I love that about his book and about his message is how accountable he is, not only to himself and transparent in his shortcomings, but how accountable he is to our community. And I think that we need more of that, not only with veterans like ourselves. We talk a lot about it, but we need more people like Sebastian Junger that are willing to come in and learn. I've recently befriended a lady and her husband that work for Texas DPS, but they also work for the FBI and AA, and it's their resiliency program, and it's amazing the research that they're doing, and we're blessed to have them here in the great state of Texas and in the law enforcement community. So yeah, we need more of it out there.
Yeah, pardon me real fast while I like update something.
Here in the great state of Texas.
Yeah, pardon me real fast while I like update something.
Here in the great state of Texas.
Yeah, pardon me real fast while I like update something. So for those of you that have been watching on Periscope, those of you we got a little echo there. Sorry about that. So for those of you just joining us on Facebook Live, we've been on Periscope. You can go back and check that, as well as our other streaming things with all the things that we're on Twitch and all that stuff. Thank you for joining us back on Facebook Live. But we've been talking about the transition, and we're just going to kind of get to where we're at. We were talking about Sebastian Junger's book, Tribe, and some of the different things that over time our perspectives have changed.
Absolutely.
I know when I came back, I thought I thought I thought it was pretty hot. I thought I was pretty cool. I thought it was a hot commodity. Yeah, book on the market. Pretty popular documentary done about my men and myself. Lots going for me. Getting some pretty cool job offers. However, I was unable to execute on any of them, and that's just because I didn't have the mentality.
Right.
I was like doing Discovery Channel, asking me to do survival shows and different things like that, and my ego blinded me to see the trouble that I was in. That led to marriage issues. It led to a lot of boozing. It led to a lot of different things, and that resulted in failed marriage, employment issues. Statistically, a transitioning veteran over 14 months. So there's 2 months of what they call that terminal leave. Most veterans have an accrued amount of leave that equates to about 2 months that they're getting paid still by the military, that they're not actually actively serving in the military. So they try to do a 14-month study. So that's 12 months plus 2 months. And during that, you can't see my math over here. I'm doing hand signals and you can't see my math. But the amount of jobs that a veteran will go through in a 14-month period is roughly 11.
Wow.
11 different employers. So think about that. You're at some jobs not even long enough to get paid.
Yeah.
You
do a paycheck.
You don't even quantify a pay period.
Yeah.
So these are things. Now, what's the root cause of this? Some people will say that the root cause of this is post-traumatic stress. I'm gonna throw up the BS flag on that one and say that's not the reason that most people can't get employed. It's definitely the reason some can't.
Sure.
It's definitely the reason some struggle. But that I don't think is the root cause for this statistic. I personally think the root cause of this statistic is, you've just spent however many years being told you're the man or woman. Like, you've been kind of put up on this pedestal. You come back to a place that you're used to working in an ambiguous and chaotic situation, but there's some defined regiment to your life. And you come back here to a quasi-regimented, non-chaotic life, and it makes zero sense to you.
Yeah.
Like, the cell phone bill is, like, the hardest thing, like, for you to deal with.
Right. Yeah, I mean, so in Tribe, Sebastian Junger talks about how, when we join the military, we're usually younger, teens, early 20s. Usually on average, the biggest accomplishment you've had, maybe outside of some sports or something, a club deal, is graduating high school, maybe some college or whatever. And then you go and you join the military, and you start to really knock down some accomplishments that many of your peers are not. You become a part of a team and a lifestyle that become much bigger than yourself, while the majority of your peers are pursuing very personal goals. You're more driving on the mission of your team, and again, the men in the front, back, left, and right. And so when that goes away, you lack this big accomplishment in your life, and you're now almost back to the average tune. And and that's where I think Sebastian Junger talks about it in the book, is that don't give a guy a disability rating, give him a job, give him a purpose,
right?
And because now you're a part of a team, you have a purpose. And now he relates it to more native cultures, and everybody has a purpose towards survival. And obviously that's a bigger picture, and that's something that's very paralleled in combat that we're probably just not going to find here. But there are professions where you can find that. I was lucky enough that I was given an opportunity with the San Antonio Spurs. It was a very humble opportunity. I usually don't say this, but my first year in the Spurs, I was a volunteer intern. I was working as a student work study at the university, and I was a full-time student. And I was in the reserves, an assistant team leader in the reserve recon unit. So I was essentially working 3 jobs and going to school full-time. And I had to have a very subservient role. And that means during practice, when an athlete fell down, we wiped the sweat off the ground. And I think that was good for me, because I was a part of a team, and I was a boot again, because I didn't know about the NBA, and I was able to kind of come back, and I was fortunate in that capacity. But it did take a whole lot of other work in other directions to allow me that opportunity. But anyways,
but you still had the tether of noble purpose, because you were still in the reserves.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now, like, you touched on something like, that, I think is crucial. And I think this is, part of why, there's, Robert Zelnick and, like all these great sociologists have made, statements about this. And one of it is that, without noble purpose, young men, like, they wander aimlessly, through life, because, like,
that's right.
They don't have a reason to do something. He's a professor of sociology at a big university in Colorado. And, like, he talks about how when he asks, his male students, what their goals, what their purpose, what their thing is, they have, like, all these, like, varying ideas and ideals that they want to pursue and accomplish, yet, like, no path to it, because, like, they're just like, this is a potential thing I could do, but there's no drive, because there's no noble purpose behind it.
Right.
Like, yeah, you want to start a coffee company and, like, sell coffee.
Yeah.
But there's no noble purpose behind it. Now, we've seen veteran companies, like, throw a noble purpose behind it. Black Rifle Coffee, for instance, or Invader Coffee. Like, their goal in making coffee is, one, to provide a substantially, like, high quality product. But the underlying current is, like, let's get guys and gals jobs.
Employ veterans.
Let's employ veterans.
Right.
Let's get them engaged in the business model. I play hockey with a guy here in Austin, Texas, that, is a veteran, former Army infantry guy. And he's, like, buying a franchise right now, because it's targeted to him to get into the as a veteran to get into the business
Right.
of doing that. And the funny thing is, like, I was like, wow, I didn't realize you were so like passionate about hockey. I mean, passionate about coffee. And he was like, like, it's okay. But what I am passionate about is like providing opportunities for myself, my family, and guys just like me, guys and gals just like me. And like, I know my first job or potential job coming out of the military was weak. It had no noble purpose. I was sitting in a cubicle. I didn't last 2 days because I was like,
yeah, you're going crazy, going stir crazy. Yeah,
like, imagine like Office Space or like, so how about those TPS reports? Like, I'm like, what? Like, I'd rather be like that dude and like fillet a fish right on those TPS reports because,
right.
Like, I need to be outside. I need to breathe oxygen. I can't let walls close in on me because, like, that's not my calling. That's not my purpose. That's not what inspires me to do. And so, like, I got very fortunate that I got to work with an organization that's design was to help people in a broad capacity.
Exactly.
And then all of a sudden, like, I got up in the morning and, man, I cared if I answered my emails.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
it was important. Like, someone might have needed my help.
Yeah.
Like, I could make an impact. I could like leverage my influence and my sphere of influence to assist people that really needed help. And I got so motivated and so behind that I went all in. I might have gone 2 in.
Yeah, I mean, I think a similar path. My first real job out of college, out of the military, was in the nonprofit sector as well, and it was where I found purpose again, as you did with, when you went to the nonprofit sector, and I think that through that, not only do we find a purpose that we needed at that time in our life in a community that we still care about, but it was still very close to us and new at the time. But I think in that we also found a purpose in a spiritual capacity, and in that has helped shape the success in the professional sector since then. And I think that oftentimes that is often forgotten is this: you find your spiritual purpose. We both are Christians. We both believe that we were designed a certain way by God, and that when you find that purpose, the rest all makes sense, and that includes the job purpose. So I think that's been huge for us as well.
So like I've tried to parlay that. Like while I had a wonderful experience, and it was probably the best thing that happened to me in terms of like my personal transition. What was that job, and then leaving that job and going out on my own was also important,
right?
And I think symbolically, part of that was because like I needed to be forward. I needed to get forward and do things and make the decision to be on my own for a bit, to figure some things out about myself. Like it's great when you're helping other people or you feel like you're helping other people, because that's an easy way to suppress your own issues.
Sure.
That's an easy way to hide things. Like, and we see it all the time. We see guys in the limelight burn out, like struggled tremendously because like,
yeah, I did. I burnt out. I mean, I wasn't in the limelight, but I burnt out on that as an everyday. It's a passion, not a profession, because it was, I had gotten away from my own healing, or it had brought up a lot of things. It's definitely something that that can wear on you when it's so close to your own issues.
We got some different stuff going on here. Hold on. Oh man. Oh. Well, what's go? Oh, we're getting crazy over here. We're just trying to make sure everyone knew what our call-in number was and our information. Getting some like neat chats going on. Thanks for the tweets and stuff. The next thing about the transition that we see guys and gals doing is they find like that noble purpose, and within that noble purpose, they try and build a celebrity.
Yeah.
They try and, and it might sound hypocritical because I'm sitting here on Facebook Live and Periscope and Twitch and everything else that Troy the Stew's got us hooked up on, doing videos and stuff. But like some people, like they try to parlay that into you know it. You call it the Semper I.
Yeah. Semper I. Spotlight Ranger.
Yeah. No, like, and then there's like I think there's people, and I hope I fall in that category that through business, through social media, through purpose, are trying to do something positive, do something you know good, like Warrior Media Solutions, like that's a business that's mission statement is to promote and send positive veteran stories and interactions. Graybeard Publishing, to which I'm a partner in, is to give guys the opportunity and gals the opportunity that are military writers, veteran writers, a place to get published where the institutional publishing houses aren't gonna accept them. So like I'd like to believe I fall in that category. However, like there's we got a Gilly monster dog over here snoring.
He's fine.
Well, we know she's alive because she's snoring. But but some guys, become professional veterans.
Yeah.
Like there's some guys that get thrust into the limelight, and I'm going to just point to Medal of Honor recipients because I don't think they choose the limelight and the celebrity that they're given. Sal Gunta, Kyle Carpenter, Leroy Petrie, Dakota Meyer. I don't think they sought out that celebrity. That celebrity found them. It found them in an abrupt, painful way.
I think they do it for the men next to him.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Sal just went over to his brigade and gave his medal to his brigade. Said, "This is not mine. This is yours," and gave them the physical medal. Yeah. But like, I want to use Dakota Meyer as an example. Here's a guy that understands that he now has a little bit of a celebrity power. He's utilized it to his benefit to do good things.
I mean, he's huge about veteran jobs.
Absolutely.
He works with Toyota. I know
absolutely
huge veteran employer, and Dakota's a big part of that.
Yeah, Leroy Petrie, Sergeant First Class Leroy Petrie. That guy helped create a housing development for people.
Wow.
Not a home, housing development for people. Because he recognized he's got that celebrity power. He's got that ability. So I'm not putting them in this category. I'm impressed that they've taken this horrible burden of this award and turned it into a blessing. And I say it's a burden because I believe it's a burden.
Well, I think a lot of, and this isn't a jab at the civilian populace, and I'm sure many of them realize this, but I think most people don't, outside of the military, don't realize that the bigger the medal, the higher the medal, the higher the honor, more than likely, the worse the situation. You know what I mean? And so these medals that are very high in the hierarchy of medals, I mean, they don't just hand those out, for hitting a speed bump. I mean, so really bad stuff happens when those go out, and yeah, it absolutely can be a burden, to receive that means something very awful happened.
Yeah, no, and to turn that into something positive, just shows the caliber of their character, right?
Exactly.
We just got a funny text message from a good friend of mine named Damon Fogel, a good friend of ours named Damon Fogel. On my phone, his name doesn't come up Damon; it actually comes up Fishmaster because I have to identify him as a better fisherman of Texas than I am, but only Texas. Outside of the state, I got him.
What's he calling us out on?
He's making fun of the fact I got horns. I got horns.
Hey, you took my line, Damon. I was waiting on that one.
I got horns coming out of my head. But here's a guy, Damon, that extremely successful in business.
Yeah.
amazingly dedicated to family, but finds time no matter what or who to do amazing things. And you know, like he doesn't brag about it. We give him a hard time, but he's the guy that if he sees a Facebook post in the middle of the night, will drive hours to not call you.
He'll show up.
He'll show up. Here's a guy that'll take you fishing. Here's a guy that'll, you know, like organize a group of friends to rally around you. Here's a guy that'll like borrow trailers so that he can go around his neighborhood and get old furniture or, you know, gently used stuff to help furnish a young upstart or transitioning veterans apartment. Like those little things, you know, like are what make our community great because it's people like that. But they're doing it for the purpose of love. They're doing it for the purpose of generosity.
Absolutely.
They're doing it for the purpose of support. They're not doing it for the purpose of popularity.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, the thing we I think many of us that do this stuff the right way for the right reasons get out of it is we get some healing, and we get to and that's really the only selfish thing we get out of it. We get a little healing.
No, like there's a tremendous cathartic, therapeutic, healing power in loving people and being loved by people.
Absolutely.
Like and I don't know a better word. I know, like, you know, I'm probably gonna get, you know, some, you know, veteran dark humor about saying that, but the reality is like the you know, when people love other people, good things typically follow. When people hate other people, I'm gonna throw it out there. Good chance bad things happen. But they're guys and gals that are trying to be celebrities based on the fact that they were veterans. You know, there are guys that you know are that make cute videos that go off on like diatribes about things. You know, like, and now they're like selling T-shirts and doing autograph signing sessions in Bass Pro Shops. You know, like they're, you know, like not every guy has to be like,
you don't have to have your own brand,
right? Well, and the funny thing is, someone said that the other day. You know, and they were like, "Well, you know, I'm working on my brand." You know, it's like,
wow.
Like, bro, like a brand is you're not a brand. You're a person. You're like, maybe you should work on your personality. You know, like
pretty ego driven
right
mindset there.
No, that's 100%.
And who's going to get better if that's the mindset, right?
Right. No, yeah. And you know, like I think, you know, like the angry veteran or the look at me veteran, you know, like that perpetrating the victimization or the victimhood of the community. I think it's worthless. You know, like we know a guy. Now, I don't give a shit if he hears me say this because I think he's a punk anyway. You know, like, yeah, I know a guy that, you know, like sells himself as something that he's not. You know, like sells a book and a story of something that's basically a bunch of crap. That's, you know, like borderline stolen valor because, like, you know, he wants to capitalize and make money off of, you know, getting blown up. Blownupguy.com if you're looking for the douche. His name's Brian Fleming, and anytime he wants some, like, he's welcome to it. You know, guys like that are just, they're not helping the community. They're absolutely worthless because what they're doing is they're like going around telling America, like, feel sorry for us, you know, feel sorry for what we've had to endure versus saying like, hey, follow us or walk beside us because we have something to offer. We have something to offer society, and I believe it's positive.
And we're not victims.
Yeah. Guys came back from the Second World War and started companies.
America's best economy we've ever had.
Guys came back from the Second World War and took places of national leadership.
Right.
The highest offices. Gilly's getting after
Yeah,
it,
I'm sorry. my dog. I got a bulldog. What Marine doesn't, right? I got a bulldog. She's a water buffalo.
You know, and named Gilly.
Gilly.
You know,
Gilly Monster.
Yeah.
Which if you've been to sniper school, you know that is not a good thing.
Yeah.
You don't want to be the Gilly Monster. But we love Gilly Monster here, and she's a water buffalo, and she kind of like she's 80 pounds.
Like I always like think that a bulldog is the dog that only a Marine could love. You know, I know that's not true because I say that because my broadcast partner Troy Stewart has the same.
Yeah, what's up, Troy?
Yeah,
bully power, man.
And you know, our good friend, Matt Goss out there in Vegas, big bulldog guy, and big shout out to Matt. You know, we support him in all his efforts and everything that he does for us.
Hey, here's to our veteran. I'm just gonna cheers.
A little veteran outdoors.
Cheers, real quick to veteran outdoors.
Cheers. Yeah,
little Shinerbach here in the great state of Texas. Anyways, you know,
I can't show you what I'm drinking because I'm contractually obligated to, support a different brand.
Oops.
I'm kidding. I'm not contractually obligated to support any brand. Yeah, but if you're looking for a brand ambassador,
yeah, whatever. Let me get on
your
this
guy. No, it's really interesting how some of these guys, like, you know, they do these videos, they do these things. One of the things, like, you know, they got to have that neon sign. You and I have both been to SHOT Show.
Oh man!
And you know, for different purposes, you are with probably the flagship of all public safety companies.
Oh,
great company. The elite, if you will, of tactical apparel.
Yeah, great company. Hires a lot of veterans. Run by a veteran.
Yeah.
So
you were there for that purpose.
Yeah.
I was there for a different purpose. I was there for working with Veteran Outdoors and seeking sponsorships for our upcoming years and missions, or hunts and activities and adventures. But one of the things I noticed there is how many people were out there selling their veteran status.
Yeah.
And and if the hat wasn't a giveaway, with like my Velcro flag and
all my pins and
my doohickey badges, like my fake hooiness everywhere. I saw from the first year to probably the third year, like the dramatic change. And it's instead of like it being a SHOT Show being for the purpose of shooting, hunting, and outdoor television, which we were actually actively engaged in that community, it became like a veteran shit show.
Yeah.
And and it's like, and if you didn't believe all my HUA badges, let me bring a dog, because like that will show you that I'm like a legit veteran.
Yeah.
And it's funny how like there's been this escalation of hooiness that
flair
of flair, and now a dog.
That's two Office Space shout outs in this podcast.
Yeah. We might have to watch it afterwards.
Yeah. I just want to kind of jump on that real quick. Is that I think one of the biggest moments transitioning out of veteran status into civilian status, and in a good way, is that you realize that while your service in the military was a defining point of your life, cornerstone of your life, it is not what has to define you for the rest of your life. It can be a part of who you are, but it does not have to be any and all. You don't need your service record stickered on the back of your car. And hey, I'm guilty of that when I was younger. I had some Marine Corps stickers, and that's cool, man. And like, it's all good. But there comes a point where it's like, that's all you talk about. That's all that's on your shirt. That's all that. I mean, it's everywhere you go. Look at me. And I think when you see guys really get it, it's when they become. I want to be just as good of a dad as I was a veteran. I want to be just as good in business. I want to go to college. I want to take what I learned from the military as a defining part of who I am and let it help shape who I'm gonna be. And I think that so many people I call them their DD-214 or service jacket, letter jacket, and it's like they walk around with their veteran service like it's a guy that's living in his hometown 10 years later wearing his varsity letter jacket. I mean, great, you did something amazing, but man, don't let that be all that you are. And I think that becomes very often, we see that is that it becomes every aspect of who this veteran is, and how are we going to ever move past that and become something even greater? And I think we all join the military with the purpose of letting the military help shape us so that we can accomplish what we want after our service. I think the majority of people, don't career in the military, so we use the military in a way to help shape us and give us what we need to get to where we want. And I think
a stepping stone.
Right, and I think that oftentimes we get hung up and we don't make that step, and I think it's because there's a lot of reward in not making that step, and
I think we've celebritized it
exactly.
Like within our community, like there's some things that are super cool, and then there's some things that are like kind of suspect, and unfortunately and tragically, you and I have attended services together.
Yeah, we have.
And not the most recent one, but one not too long ago. The guy served for 48 months, 4 years. And the guy was in his 30s. The whole part of his service, the whole theme of his service, and everything about his service, and this is a guy that successfully transitioned out. Was about his military service. And I just remember sitting there, thinking how sad and how tragic this service is, that for a guy that's in his 30s, we're only talking about 4 years. Like what about the other accomplishments, where he went to school, the influence, the sphere of influence that he had while he spent just as much time in college. In fact, he probably spent more time in college than he spent in the military. What did he do with that sphere of influence? Because I know he did positive things with it.
Absolutely.
And you're like, man, like, well, everyone's like, man, it's, what a great hero. Not taken away from that.
Yeah,
I'm just saying,
we should touch on
absolutely celebrate it.
Right.
However, let's not forget, like, in the last one that we were at, I was very happy because I believe that service honored his core being, not his aesthetics.
Absolutely.
Like, it wasn't what was on his windows or his jacket or that was celebrated. His character. That's right. Was celebrated.
And then when I finally take the dirt nap, and on my tombstone, I hope that above my military service on my tombstone it says husband and father, veteran, and above all, Christian, above all of that. And so, like, I think that to hope that there's a veteran out there listening, and when I'm put in those positions to give advice to a veteran, I'll just tell you is don't let your service be what defines you. Let it be a defining part of who you are. Take what you learned there and use that in other defining parts of your life. Come out of your comfort zone and challenge yourself, just like when you took the oath. Yeah. And do that in business. Do that in your relationships. You push yourself in the military to go to these schools or follow on trainings or all these different trainings because it helps promote your career. It helps promote your development. And the same is definitely out there in the civilian sector. It's everywhere. And all it takes is to get out there and go for it and use it and be humble. Realize that you may have to go be a private again to relearn relearn something.
A wise man once told me, and it was so profound that when he told it to me, I didn't grasp it. And what he's told me, what he was trying to teach me, was that your entire lifespan is a training purpose.
Yeah.
So when I was a young kid, I enjoyed the outdoors, and I was taught to walk through the wood line with stealth. I was taught to walk through the wood line with the purpose of not being detected, and that was by like the animals that we were trying to take pictures of, or perhaps hunt, or for whatever we were trying to do at the time. The Boy Scouts then reinforced some of those trainings. Then, when I got in the Army, one of the reasons I think I was successful in the infantry is because I had really strong field craft.
Right.
And I realized, I was like, oh, well, if I didn't get that field craft taught to me when I was a kid, like, the Army didn't teach me survival skills. They honed existing skill sets. Like I learned that in the mountains of northern British Columbia and Alaska. I didn't learn that at Fort Benning, but that base knowledge helped, refine that, and then constantly going through. And the whole time you're in the Army or the Marine Corps, you're training for the purpose of combat. And the wise person was trying to tell me, because I'd been to combat didn't mean that I needed to stop training for life. And that being a fire team leader, being a squad leader, being a platoon sergeant, well, that's training you perhaps for the next job of being a first sergeant or a command sergeant major. But it's also training you to be a good father.
Absolutely. And
so when that career is over, you're still a father. And then as you're training, like with your current child, you're learning lessons that you're hopefully going to bestow the learnings from on the latter child. And then throughout life, like you have the opportunity to speak into your grandchildren's lives the way you unsuccessfully spoke into your children's lives. But your grandchildren will listen to you because there's that understanding that now you hold wisdom. But you're still training for something. And, and the wise person was telling me, like, how you live your life is training you for how your life expires. Mm-hmm. And, it's like you're constantly in the state of training. So many guys and girls feel like they go to combat, they come back from combat, that's the culmination. That is the peak, that is the pinnacle, that is the summit of their life. It's crescendoed in combat, and now it's decrescendoing in the civilian world. And they don't give themselves the understanding or the benefit of the doubt to know that their greatest accomplishments are yet to come.
Absolutely agree.
They are shortchanging themselves the opportunity to demonstrate to the world, the community, the world, their church, wherever they might be, their circle of friends, their sphere of influence, that the greatest achievements and accomplishments are yet to come. And I feel like that's why a lot of the celebrity, branding or whatever you want to call it, that people are doing is because like they're trying to get back, in the military womb. They're trying to get back in the
trying to be relevant in the world because they miss a void and it.
That's where you're seeing guys getting service dogs, 10 years after they transition for no apparent need.
Well, what I mean, like, and we talked off the air about this. Is that so? So it's around 13% of veterans, and this is GWAT veterans, I'm assuming, have experienced direct fire combat. Yet the majority of veteran claims in the disability VA process are combat related, but yet we've only had 13% around in direct fire combat. And it also statistically talks about in tribe, and it may be off, give me a little percentage variance here, but never mind. I'm not gonna.
No. I mean, so the caveat is people not in direct fire can gain symptoms.
Absolutely.
Of post-traumatic stress. However, that's still we're talking about a very small number, and yet we have a high number of people claiming this disability.
Well, and what I was going to say earlier, and lost my train of thought there, is that these symptoms can subside on average within 9 months of returning home. PTSD can subside on average.
Yeah.
In most cases, it's a very acute situation. Now, it may flare up from time to time. It may come back, but on average, it won't be debilitating after 9 months. Therefore, I think we talked on it, and they're doing this, but there should be a reevaluation.
Yeah, there is,
and I think that's something that I mean. I think a lot of veterans shy away from that is because they don't want their benefits taken away, not because they don't want to get better. So and if you should want to get better.
So this study that's couple hundred pages thick that I've spent the best part of my day going through. Was not a short period of time. They did it, you know, over an expanse of almost 10 years.
Wow.
So that they could collect good data, and you know, they learned a lot of interesting things. And you know, obviously, you know, there's people that, you know, went and sought treatment. There's people that sought medication. There's people that checked themselves out of treatment because they felt, you know, it was of no effect. But it's so interesting that, you know, we've created this culture of like, hey, coolness to be at a certain thing, and you shouldn't be seeking a rating. You should be seeking like good health.
Yeah, we're rewarding victimization, and the reward lasts longer if you're disabled longer, I guess.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I severed a relationship with an individual who was blatantly seeking benefits because he didn't want to work anymore, and he wasn't wounded. He didn't rate it, and I had to sever ties because I blatantly disagree with that, and it's such a sham that goes on, and you know, and that's part of why the VA medical system is clogged, is because we have all these false claims, and we got to look internally on a lot of this stuff, you know.
And that's the thing. It's like we need to, like, I know when I was getting out, and one of the reasons I've had a hard time with the VA is because when I got out, I immediately did not go to the VA, and the reason I did not go to the VA is because I was so disgusted by the people repping the VA as I was transitioning out, as I was separating from the Army. You know, I looked at the guy that was there for the VA, and, you know, listening to say, you need to say this because this is going to help you get that. And, you know, it's like, no, you don't tell me how to game the system.
Right.
Like, explain to me if I have a problem where I need to go to get help. Don't teach me how to game the system. And all the guys and gals that I encountered working in that capacity, their purpose was to help you game the system, not get help. And we got, you know, previous guest of the show, friend of the show, Justin Capel, that, you know, works, you know, for the VA. And I really love his approach because he's trying to, like, tell you, like, hey, this is, you know, like, if you need help, this is what you need to do. This is where you need to go. But it's not the gaming the system that so many people are trying to do. And after 10 years, like, if you're still taking all those drugs, you're still taking those pills, well, that's because you're choosing to not move forward.
Right.
You know, Tim Kennedy got in a lot of hot water over some tweets and some comments 2 years ago because he was like, you know, like, pardon the language, but he's like, don't be a pussy.
Right.
Like you want to get better, get better. And, you know, our good friend Chad Robichaux, I love the way he puts it. He's like, we're military guys, and we know that standing on the X is not good. The battle drill, react to contact, react to ambush. I'll tell you, get off the X.
That's right.
You know, like, don't stay on it. And if you know that you're in the kill zone, and
self-aid, buddy aid.
Yeah.
Get off the X.
Get off the
X.
X.
Hey, man, take care of yourself, take care of your buddies, and get off the X, man. Like, this is we know this stuff.
And, you know, like, it's one of the very first things that we were taught, and yet we as a community will stay on the X as long as possible.
Yeah.
But Travis, great episode. Thanks for coming on. All of you watching on Facebook Live that missed half of the episode, feel free to go back and catch it on Periscope or on Twitch. And YouTube, of course, we're on YouTube. Don't forget our YouTube channel, Stu and the Nunn, on YouTube, where you can get the whole thing. You can see the sexiness known as this.
This.
It doesn't have a name. We're not like Brangelina. We're not like toxic. What? Oh, toxic.
We should have our own brand.
Look out for videos of us in our vehicle. what's up with people shooting all their videos in cars? Even like Tommy Lauren's doing that stuff now.
Oh man, just sitting in the driver's seat
like,
of the car,
like,
pulled over.
Like, hey, I'm gonna like shoot a video. It was fun when Nick Diaz did it because he was driving and he was like flipping the camera off with his fingers while trying to drive back from practice. You know, anytime you're like shooting a video, leaving jiu-jitsu practice, I got mad props for you because like one, you went to jits, and two, like you're still mad about something that you're shooting a video and flipping people off in your car. You're like, you know,
yeah.
But tune in next week. Stu will be back, and we will be at our regular place and time. We have a guest. Not sure who it is because Stu's got it lined up. But thanks, Travis, for coming on. Always a pleasure. Thanks for everything else that's going on, everybody. Tune in, like our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter, check out the YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Peace.